look into smart regs. You're all of you people with the rental problems are involved. Homeowners who occupy their own unit have no concern. However, smart regs does cover some of the common elements like hallways, possibly the clubhouse, and will require upgrades to meet their program. They have what's called a home energy rating system. And it's an engineer thing is what it is. But they can actually tell what your energy consumption is and all that kind of stuff. Last point, and I'll be through. At some point in time, we've got to get this business of replacement reserve under control. And I can say this without blushing. It was blown badly by a number of boards prior to this one. You can't blame all this on them. They may or may not understand it, but this happened a long time ago, and it shouldn't happen again. It is required by state law and our own declarations that we have these replacement reserves. So sooner or later, and probably sooner, we need to get together with some people who understand this. And it sounds like I'm bragging, but I do understand it. I was involved in this stuff for a long, long time. And there are a couple of people in this room who also understand it. But we need to monitor that. Then the board has the unpleasant task of telling you that your homeowner's dues will increase somewhat. But that's unavoidable. That's unavoidable. And my only other admonition is to anybody who has any authority or power, remember you have a fiduciary responsibility. And failure to fulfill that can also lead to legal implications. This is a copy of that. I go online. I'm not going to make a bunch of copies for anybody. This is a critical change in law, this act that says that, and it broadens out what we're entitled to, by the way, quite a bit. It's a whole brand new ballgame. Anybody got any questions, concerns, anxieties? Wish it hadn't happened? Well, it's here. And this is an inevitable result of people not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Happens every time.
So say I retire and I want to rent my place out and the siding has already been in place. How much more is it going to cost me? Do we know?
Well, if you have to
So I can actually speak to this because I've been since, I think it was Scott who raised the issue of smart rigs about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I've been investigating that myself. And frankly, at this moment, while everything Woody just said is true, there is an ambiguity that needs to be cleared up about where the relative responsibilities might fall in a situation like you're describing, or that other case in which a unit is not passing, is a rental unit, it's not passing, and they've done all the things that like switch out the windows and tape the doors and all those things. It's not clear at this moment whether or not the HOA would acquire some responsibility here, but there is a method for trying to settle that I was just apprised of by our lawyer, and I'm going to be pursuing that. Well, I or those who are going to. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll just say I or someone who's in an appropriate authoritative position here is going to push for this soon, so that we get an answer. There's something we can do to try to get an answer from people who do smart regs and inspections that would be relevant to your case and to this other case that I suggested. You definitely need to.
One other quick comment. I think it's necessary that we notify in writing all owners, including absentee owners, of this change with respect to smart regs, or some of these people are going to lose their rental income. The guys living out of state never heard of this probably. I think it's incumbent on us to tell everybody about it. And because there's always the people that didn't get the word.
That's what I want. Before we send anything like that, and I agree, that's something I want to see happen. Okay. But before we do it, I want to know exactly, sort of, I want the I's dotted and the T's crossed about exactly what the responsibilities would be, and what sort of money's involved, and what sort of remedies are available to an owner of a rental property, so that we can give people good advice about that, or at least send them to someone who can give them good advice.
That could be a big order.
And a quick,
But anyhow,
By the way-
everybody's gotta be notified that this is coming, so it's no unpleasant
and
surprise.
a quick follow-up on common area and the HOA's responsibility there.
Yeah, that's something also that
Yeah.
I'm gonna be asking, that's one of the
Okay.
things that needs to be
We haven't
figured
done the
out.
windows either, so.
Because there is this ambiguity again, because it's supposedly only renters, only owners of rental properties, is this directly target. But I don't know what happens if say, over 50% of units in a building that's HOA owned are, rentals, then maybe something happens. So looking into all of that, right?
Another question. If part of, let's say, the first floor isn't insulated and the second floor is, the third floor isn't, it seems to me the insulation isn't as good as if all three floors were insulated along that wall,
Yeah.
much less than the insulation slip and up.
Well, this kind of goes to the whole issue that's complicated. That there are, because we have joint owners, we have what amounts, in an HOA, we have what amounts to joint ownership. And it is actually, to some extent, legally determined what each of us is severally responsible for. This is an area that I don't think is completely ambiguous, but we need to get out ahead of it. And just to add something to what Woody was saying, this is a part of a very broad thing that I'm starting to understand because I've been in conversations with professional HOA managers, people who've been doing this in this area for 30, 40 years. And one of the things I'm learning is that HOAs didn't even exist except somewhere in Florida past 40 years ago. It's gradually moved across the country, and the process that Woody's talking about, where the state has finally decided to step in and regulate, is a part of a process that's been underway for some time. There are going to be more regulations. We're going to have more that we have to keep ahead of, and the need for professionals who know all about this. The professional managers I've been talking to knew immediately what the smart rate situation was. I didn't have to ask them. They knew all of my questions almost before I asked them. And Dora is similar. This law is something they know about. We've been talking to our lawyer about that to make sure we're in compliance. But I do think that this is something that bears on Judy's point, that I think we need to seriously look at professional management or Uber management of this operation because of the amount of money, because of the growing complexity of managing this kind of facility. And so, we're going to try to, because I don't see how we're going to get ahead of all these issues if we don't get that kind of Uber advice.
I have two comments, Woody. One, you said homeowners' dues will inevitably go up, but I think we need to look at where are we wasting money. We might not need to go up.
True.
The other thing is, this talking about just insulating rentals versus everybody, this is the kind of short-sighted, self-interested, on the cheap, I'm going to say, because they all should be insulated, and there's a reason they're smart rigs, there's a reason for doing it, and we should be doing all of them when we side them. And some of us have been asking
And after
for
they
this
side
continue.
them.
What?
And after they sign.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
ones
the
that have
ones
already
that
been
have
cited
been
need to be done.
Okay, so let me just say,
So that's
this is
our
an issue that came up at the assessment meeting. It's an ongoing issue.
Okay.
Of course, every time we add something that we want from contractors, we have to be willing to pay for it. And so until we know exactly what would be involved in doing, we're looking into insulation under the roofs, since we're redoing roofs, to see if we can incorporate that. We are looking into the same thing for siding. I don't know whether everything, there's obviously a strong, there are many good reasons for redoing all the insulation, but I just want you to hear me say it. This may require additional money. And I don't want to commit to anything at this point beyond the broad outline of the assessment we just agreed to.
I would like to
Until
hear,
we get professional advice that, as you said, looks at the whole picture, looks at all the pieces, looks at the timelines that we're facing, and then makes recommendations.
I
Does
would
that
just
make
like to
sense?
see commitment to being a responsible HOA and responsible homeowners, and insulation has been required and necessary all our lives.
Okay, one more question, then the engineer is here, and I guess we need to give him a chance. I understand, and I'm gonna interrupt them, since we get to decide the agenda, and we have someone, please, we have someone who's a professional, who's doing this for nothing, and his time is limited, and I wanna give him the floor now.
Why didn't you give us enough time?
Because I'm imperfect,
Here, this is the deal.
because I wasn't in charge of this occasion.
Look, here's the 2-minute elevator speech. So, about 3 months ago, I got a letter from an upstream ditch developer saying, hey, just sign off on this, we're gonna change the ditch. I said, of course not. I said, if you wanna touch our ditch, you gotta pay for an engineer and a lawyer representing us. If they tell us it's okay, then the board will vote on it. We've been going back and forth for 2.5 months. Charlie Kine is here to give a presentation to the board. We drew a line in the sand. They responded 2 days ago with a threat to sue us. And so Charlie's going to give the board a synopsis
So this is the
of
time
where
where
we
we
stand.
should, we really need to.
This is the
Yeah,
farmer's
it's-
ditch,
It's important.
okay? So I'm going to bring him out, okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry for the interruption, but it is something we really need advice about right now, because they're threatening us. I think it's a bogus threat. Easy for me to say. They want to rearrange a part of the infrastructure involving our ditch water because of a construction project that they are undertaking. And they want us to agree to it, but it's going to change some things about our access to the water according to the engineer, and he's here, and I'll let him explain.
Where's a good spot for him?
You want to come over here?
Here, just maybe right up here. Put down the spot.
My name is Chuck Kime. I'm a civil arts, civil engineering and surveying firm in Boulder. Can you hear
I
me?
can't hear you, Vicky.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
can barely hear you.
I'm Chuck Kime with a civil arts engineering firm in Longmont. I have been around Boulder as a civil engineer for many years. In fact, I was with Drexel Burrell when this project was designed. So that's a long time ago. I don't know how much you know, so I'm going to give you a brief overview of what's happening. There's a project up on Kalmia. It is just east of Sail Lake, and you may be familiar with Sail Lake. It's a nice little project. Project east of there, there was an old farmhouse. It's being developed right now. The irrigation water for Remington Post comes through the very west edge of that project. As part of the project, the developer wants to do some modifications to the irrigation ditch to make all your lawns nice and green. The city has a requirement that the developers reach agreement with the owner of the irrigation laterals on what they're doing, so they don't just do anything. They have the right to do things, but you all have the right to say that that's okay what they're doing, so that it's a symbiotic relationship. You can't tell them, no, you can't do anything, but they have to be reasonable. Back in June, Barney Moran contacted me and wanted to know if I would consult with you all on the changes that were being proposed, and I said yes. Through a mix-up in some email at the other engineers, and we didn't actually get together until the middle of July. And since the middle of July, we've gone back and forth on details of what they're proposing to do. I won't bore you with a lot of the details. Suffice it to say that we're at a point now where I believe that your water is protected, that it is probably, if we get the things that are in the last review that was sent out, if we get those things accomplished, it will actually be a better ditch system than what you have now. The delivery will be more assured, and the water will be less exposed to some of the sticks and leaves and so forth that oftentimes come through. That's not to say that it won't still have those. It will. It'll be an improvement, but it will not make everything as if it's all underground. Nevertheless, I'd like to recommend tonight that based upon the latest review that we have and the understanding that I have with your attorney, Bugara Mehdi, that the board approve that the developer go ahead with this plan, subject to a number of conditions which we will place in the agreement. Those conditions include details on what the contractor is going to build. Right now, what we have is a drawing with kind of pictures, but they don't have a lot of detail. They show, for example,